Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome along to round 9 of the TUF Racing League. We're here with Division 1 today in Austria. We had the Division 2 race here last night, which proved to be quite an interesting one. A few incidents on the first couple of corners. As we can see, we have a wet qualifying, so this could be quite interesting to see whether the field's ever so slightly mixed up. Hopefully the guys put some good lap times together. We have a couple of Division 2 drivers as per normal. We've got Chris Logan in, we've got Josh McGill, we have Henry, and we have John, who is a new driver who made his debut last night for the Division 2. We also have the return of Miles. I believe he's gone down to being a reserve driver with 19 cars on the grid, so almost a full grid, which is great to see. So we've got just over 9 minutes left of the session so far. Nobody is yet to set a lap time. We're currently on board with Funky Cobra, who is just approaching the very, very tricky turn 2 or 3, however you want to look at it. I would imagine there will be some close battles here this evening. Good lap times, probably looking at the high 105s to low 106s. I believe the pole position last night for Division 2 was a 106.3. So I'm assuming the Division 1 guys will go slightly quicker than that. I think anybody that gets around 105.8 will be looking probably to take pole position if at all possible. So we'll just stand board with Funky as he approaches. We'll just stand board with Funky. We've got Whiskey, who's gone quickest so far, of 116.5. I mean, I did just say about the qualifying times, but obviously it is raining, so we're going to have to add on some time to that. I do apologise. So just as Funky comes into the last corner, the back end slips out ever so slightly. John goes quickest of a 116.2. Where does Funky go? He goes third of a 116.6. So we'll just skip through the field. We've got Pagani set a banker time of a 117.2. As we've got George Alice, whose back end comes out quite a lot there. That little windy section at the end of sector 2 is quite difficult, especially as the tyres get a bit more worn. As Miles goes quickest of a 116 flat, I would imagine George Alice to set a good time. As he comes over the line, goes into P2 of a 116.2. So anywhere in the 115s is looking to be a good solid time for qualifying. Trizzy Antonio, I believe it's his third or fourth race in TUF now. Not had the greatest of starts, but I'm sure he will be looking to progress on as he loses the back end and hits the wall there. Austria is quite a difficult track at times. Tyre wear is very high, so obviously the guys will have a completely free selection of what they would like to start on, given the fact that the race is due to be clear the whole way through. So just stand board Patrizia. I would imagine he's probably going to come back in. Yeah, he's going to come back into the pits now, I believe. Yeah, there we go. So we are going to find, where is he? There he is. We're on board with Carlsberry, who I believe is just starting a flying lap. So we'll stand board with Carl. As he approaches the very tricky turn 2. Traction's very hard coming out of this corner. Even just turning the car sometimes can make the back end come out quite a lot, especially putting down anything on the throttle. So maybe we'll see one or two guys lose it there this evening. The difficult thing with Austria, I had an experience last night myself. I had some front wing damage at turn 1, and it kind of ruins your whole race, to be honest with you, because it's not like you can go on the harder tyre and do a much longer stint than anybody else, because the tyre wear is just so bad here. So unfortunately that will jeopardise your race quite a lot. So I think the key to Austria is just avoid as many incidents as possible, as stupid as it sounds, but it can make such a big difference at times. As we see Carl just coming through the final corner, takes it nicely, doesn't take too much curb, and he crosses the line with a non-registered time, so maybe he invalidated his lap. We're going to have a look at a couple of other guys. We've got the return of Shay this evening, which is lovely to see him back. Welcome back, Shay. And I say that and see him going sideways on the final corner. hopefully his fortunes can turn around a little bit. As we see, Dobby is now taking pole position with a 1:15.7. So yeah, anywhere around the mid 1:15s is going to look to get you pole position this evening, I'd imagine. So with the wet weather, it adds on about 10 seconds onto your time. We've just under 5 minutes to go in the session. We've got Henry who's not actually coming out the pits. Let's see if we can go on board with somebody else. Nice to see Pagani sitting there in P7 at the moment. Pagani not had the best of luck so far in this championship, but hopefully he can turn around his fortunes this evening. I'd imagine he'll be looking to go slightly quicker for qualifying. We've got James who set a time for 1:17.1. Now I would imagine James will go much quicker than that, so he must have had a bit of an issue on his lap. We've also got Napoli in, who's a reserve driver as well. He had a very good performance last night around Austria. So I will be keeping a close eye. Okay, Zenar comes back into the pits. So I'll just double check and just send that the stream is working fine. We've had confirmation there from Henry. Thank you very much for that, mate. And best of luck to you for the race this evening. Okay, so we do have Pubster Randy who's sitting in P5 at the moment with 1:16 flat. So is anybody out on track? I'm sure, I think there must have been some issues with Carsberry this evening. I think he might have been validated both of his laps so far, so I'm sure he's going to come out again very soon. I'm sure we're going to see quite a few guys coming out to do their final runs of qualifying. Obviously, hopefully their racing line would have taken a bit of a nicer shape. The guys have slightly more grip towards the end of qualifying. As we see on board with Henry just on his outlap at the moment, representing his lovely Sauber. Oh, and he loses it. Luckily saved that to prevent any damage, but that's going to really jeopardise his next lap. Obviously with no straight line speed, having to let the car behind him go through, so I'd imagine Henry will treat this as like another outlap now and give himself a little bit of room on track. As we are just on board with Dobby, I think we're going to have a look at Trizzy Antonio's had a good qualifying so far, finds himself in P4. Very good around this track, Trizzy. We actually had a debut last night from Mr. Costa, who was about half a lap away from taking the race win. Unfortunately, coming out of the right-hander just at the end of the first DRS straight, obviously excluding the start-finish straight. Took too much curb and a bit too keen on the throttle, sent him sideways and allowed Miracles to go through and take the race win. So unlucky for Mr. Costa last night. We know he's very quick, and we would imagine that he will be claiming a few race wins as the season goes on in Division 2. I do recommend going back and looking through the stream. Sao Paulo and Carl did a very good job on the commentary last night. So we're going to stand board with Trizzy, as I reckon if he can get a nice solid lap together, Trizzy could surprise a few people. We've actually got Miles sitting in P2 as well. Now we know Miles is famous for quite a bit of lag, so hopefully that doesn't affect anybody this evening. Trizzy's gone slightly deep coming out of turn 1 there, which may have invalidated his lap for exceeding track limits, but he doesn't look to have lifted off, so I don't think it has affected him too much. Or maybe he's just trying to power around to do one more flying lap. Yes, we do actually have Carsberry on track, as Trizzy's teammate lets him through nicely there. I believe that's Funky Cobra, who's had a good qualifying in P5. So a bit of a jumbled grid at the moment. If you'd have told me that Miles would have been on the front row, I would have been quite surprised. Obviously Funky's found himself in a very good position as well. Pagani and Schoen very close together, and George Alice down in 10th and James in 11th. Just going to stand board with Trizzy as he approaches the start of sector 3 now. Really important to get this second to last corner right, just to get that nice amount of cut so you don't have to brake too much or lift off too much. Seems to have taken it quite nicely. as he comes down to the final corner now. Clips the curb ever so slightly. Is he going to improve? No, he doesn't by the looks of things. He may have just got over the line then to enable himself to do one more flying lap. And where is Carsberry in all this? Carsberry is in P11 with a 1:16.2, so I know he's invalidated his first 2 laps, so I think just to get any form of lap on. And wow, John has gone fastest by 1.2 seconds of a 1:14.5. So the track is really starting to dry up now, and I would imagine that we're going to see a few guys here jump towards the top of the grid. What a performance from John there. We're going to stay on board with Trizzy to see whether he can improve. He is one of the only people left as Dobby's retired from P2, but I would imagine he'll go down the field a little bit. Well, Trizzy's had a bit of a wobble there and he's retired from the session, so unfortunate for Trizzy. And we're coming on board with Miles as he is just about to cross the line. Napoli goes quickest now with a 1:12.7. Okay, so the guys at the top have gone onto ultra soft tyres, so that's made things very interesting. NR's out on track with intermediates. Funky is on track on intermediates as well. Do we have anybody else? No, James is okay. By the looks of things, that is the last of the runners. So in a crazy end to qualifying, Napoli has taken pole with a 1:12.7. Excellent job from Napoli there. And John taking, okay, bit of incident there. Not too sure what's going on. Looks like the guys are actually racing one another. Hopefully there's not an actual... Okay, I'm really not too sure what's going on here, but there's 3 cars up the road just driving into one another. Who are those drivers? Who is in the other Ferrari? It was John. Okay, very interesting. So 20 seconds left of qualifying. Nobody is on a flying lap. Okay, as Carsberry retires from the session, so Napoli takes pole position, and John comes home in P2. So excellent result for the 2 guys there, obviously on ultra soft tyres. So we've got Dobby and Miles in P3 and 4. We've got NR and Trizzy on the 3rd row. Funky and Pubstrand in P7 and 8, with Pagani and Schoen rounding off the top 10. Good job for the Renault drivers there. They've not had the best of luck so far, so let's hope they get a good clean start. We've got James in 11th, George Ellis in 12th, Carsberry in 13th with Whiskey next to him, and then the final few, Chris Logan and Henry, Shayo down the bottom with Fuzzer and Josh McGill not to set a time. So, final preparations being taken. Now, with the greatest respect to Napoli and John, they're not the guys that we would kind of expected at the front of the grid. So it's going to be, I'm quite keen to see what goes on behind them and how long they can sustain those positions, because I'd imagine it will cause quite a few cars to do some bunching, and the guys towards the back, it might allow them to make some spaces up. So I would expect a very interesting start. Let's hope there's not too much damage for anybody, because that will affect your race quite heavily. With 10 seconds to go, race strategy is going to be taken, final preparations, and we should cut in to about 2 or 3 lights. There we go. And we are lights out in Austria. Good start from Napoli. Dobby's had a good start behind Miles. Looks like he's lagging quite a lot, and he's lagged straight into the back of John, which is maybe giving him some wing damage. There's a few cars going off in the background. Miles is lagging very, very badly. Trizzy Antonio's got past Dobby into P4, so he's made up a couple of places so far. And there's some lag there. Yeah, Miles is lagging horrendously. He needs to retire from the session. Is he going to cause any problems? 1 minute he spun, next minute he didn't. Miles needs to retire from the session, unfortunately. Towards the back, we've got 10 different pubs around here with the 2 Renaults just behind, who actually swapped positions, I believe. As we've got someone going around the outside of Pagani. Who is that? That is Carlsberry. He's had a good start. As they go side by side, he has got Whiskit just behind him. Carlsberry makes the move and finds himself up to P10, so a good start so far. We're going to go on board with Napola, who has already pulled 1.3 seconds. Okay, there's a yellow in sector 3. Yeah, there's horrendous lag from Miles. Miles, if you can hear me, please retire your car, because that was going to cause some serious problems for some guys. We've got Schoen's moved up into P6, so an excellent start from Schoen. And we've got Napola, who's pulled a second lead already after 1 lap. It's a brilliant job from him there. We've got Trizzy Antonio in P3 with Miles just behind. Let's hope there's no lag incidents here that causes any problems. Trizzy's had a good start, staying well clear of Miles. Trizzy holds it quite nicely. Yeah, Miles is off in the gravel, now he's back on track. Yeah, this is not good. As a reference to the F1 YouTuber Into the Barrier, this is definitely aliens. We can be sure of that. As we see Dobby and Pubster Randy going side by side. Dobby's a bit too cautious. I think he might be going into the pits. Yeah, Dobby's coming to the pits as John sets the fastest lap of the race. We're going to go a bit further back. We've got Whiskit just behind his teammate Carlsberry, and Pagani shot down to P16, so I can only imagine there's been a bit of an incident there because he was in P10. A good start from Fuzzer, who started second last, now finds himself up into P9 and on the back of the 2 Williams drivers. Getting very close to one another as Chris Logan is now into P10, so a good start there from Chris, and then Josh McGill and Henry, the 2 Division 2 drivers, battling it out. Josh unfortunately got tagged at the start of Austria last night, so he's going to be looking to prove a nice point. Henry's had to lift off ever so slightly there just to avoid any contact with the back of Josh's car. So George Alice is pitted as well as Dobby, so I think a few of the guys have so far. I'm sure we can have a look. Yeah, we've got all of the guys from P13 downwards, so George Alice has had to make 2 stops. So we're going to go back up and check on the leaders with Napola. Okay, Sheo retires from the session. How unfortunate for Sheo. Really having no luck, I'm afraid, so far. As Trizzy Antonio is having a look at John. Now, if I'm going to be very honest, I mean, this is an excellent start from Napola so far. If I'm going to be very, very honest, I would say that this is a brilliant opportunity for Trizzy Antonio to go and possibly even win the race this evening. Strategy and damage dependent. As he goes side by side with John going down towards the bottom of the hill section. Trizzy takes a bit of a jump on the curb, which takes him slightly wide. Is he going to concede the position back? And Trizzy has spun. Just as I say that, commentator's curse, Trizzy has unfortunately spun, and now he's been hit, lagged off into the wall, and I think that will be the end of Trizzy Antonio's race for this evening. Really unfortunate for him there. I was just about to say that I think this is a brilliant opportunity for Trizzy to go and get a race win here tonight, because we know he's fast. So Pubster Randy is the next guy to join the fray. Can he get past the alien that is Miles? And Schoen has got up into P5, so he's made up 5 spaces so far in the space of, well, basically 5 laps, 4 laps. So what an excellent job there from Schoen. He is a guy on a mission. He has Carlsberry for company. I'm sure he'll be well aware of that, with Fuzzer just behind. So Schoen, if you can hear me, just stay focused and don't worry too much about what's going on behind you. Hopefully get some good points for Renault today. As Pagani's in P12 at the moment, but like I said, everybody from Henry downwards, I believe, well from Pagani, sorry, downwards, has all pitted, and we've unfortunately had a retirement in the way of Sheo. Now we have Chris Logan, who's on the back of Wisket, with Josh McGill just behind, so we have a three-way battle here for P8. Chris was a little bit conservative there, so he's lost a few attempts to Wisket. He finds himself in 8th, so he's not had a bad start, making up 6 places. Fuzz has made up 11 places so far, as James gets a 3-second time penalty for multiple warnings. I shouldn't expect to see too many penalties here tonight. Obviously you can slightly exceed the track limits or cut the corner a bit too much on turn 1. Other than that, really, it's only really the final couple of corners which you can cut or exceed the track limits. Other than that, I think it's pretty plain sailing, to be honest. Just going to stand board with this little battle. They seem to be the closest to one another. We do have Miles approaching the back of John, but I'm really quite worried for Miles this evening, or for those around him. Brilliant helicopter shot here, as we can see the cars. Josh really putting the pressure on Chris, and we know Chris is consistent. He won't make too many mistakes, but it's going to be the risk of Josh and what sort of moves he takes, as we've got a yellow flag there. Hope that is not Pagani, because he seems to have lost a place. Yeah, it is. It's unfortunate it's Pagani. He finds himself off and he's lost half of his front wing, so Pagani not having much luck. Now where is Trizzy Antonio in all this? He's down in P15, sorry. Pagani has retired from the session. He's lost a wheel. Pagani, what is going on, my friend? Not having much luck whatsoever. Trizzy has lagged out, I believe. Hopefully we can see him soon, as Napola is still 1.7, well, basically 1.7 seconds clear of second place. So really strong performance so far from the Finn. He's not seeming to be cracking under any sort of pressure. We have Miles having a look up the inside of John. Going to have a bit of a switchback on him, which is allowing Pubster to close up. So I think Napola seems fairly comfortable with the gap to John and Miles, but we know Pubster can be quick. A bit inconsistent on this game, but he can be quick, as we see Miles doing some dancing on ice type skills. Now the longer Pubster stays behind the 2 guys ahead of him, the more it enables Napola to pull away and hopefully get a bit of a gap. Now he seems to be improving by a few attempts and then losing a few attempts, Napola, so hopefully he can maintain this gap. Now we're going to stand board with Miles and see whether there's any lag issues going into turn, I believe it's turn 3, because I think that slight right turn on that straight classes as a turn. Let's see if we see Miles jumping about. As you can have a look at John, obviously DRS is now enabled as John squeezes him out. Clean defending there from John, nicely done. Miles runs off ever so slightly. Are they going to go side by side? Just need to be patient here, Miles. You don't need to do anything silly. The second that there's a slight mistake from either of the 2 guys ahead, that is going to enable Pubster to go through. And with Shone and Fuzzer and Carl all behind, this is shaping up to be quite a close race. I am aware that there is a battle going on between Wisket, Chris and Josh still, but at the moment obviously a battle for position here, as Miles looks to go around the outside. Takes too much, which allows Pubster to possibly go through. They're going to go three wide into turn 2, approaching turn 3. Pubster has the move on Miles. Hopefully Miles doesn't break too late or cause any issues, as Pubster is going to have a look around the outside of John. Is he going to make it stick? He will be under DRS. As we see Shone, Carl and Fuzz are all very close to one another, and Fuzz has got the move on both of them. As we Pubster gone, and Miles completely cuts the corner to go into P2. Pubster Andy in third. So now we have 6 cars going side by side as Fuzzer and Carl and Shone all get past John now. So a horrible first sector, or 1.5 sector, sorry, for John on lap 9 of this Grand Prix. Now we have a familiar sight with a battle between Pubster Andy, Fuzzer and Carl, and Shone having an excellent drive so far. Well done to you, my friend. Keep up the good work. Finds himself into P6. Fuzzer's made 14 places up in 9 laps as they start lap 10. So not even a third of the way through the Grand Prix, and he finds himself, as a quick calculation, about 4.5 seconds behind the leader. But Napola's got a 3-second advantage now over Miles, and I think out of all of the cars behind him, he would want Miles ahead in the pack, because he seems to be possibly the slower out of the next sort of 4 or 5 cars. Looks like I've had a problem for Lennon this evening. I think he's having some technical difficulties with his television, which isn't great, so hopefully we get that fixed fairly soon. As we see James making a pass on Dobby, who finds himself down in P12 as James up into P11, but 19 seconds off of 10th place. We can't really lead this battle at the moment because we have all of the guys battling for 2nd place, and that could really take effect. As we see a lagged out Trizzy Antonio, I believe, getting lapped from the guys. Okay, Pubster Andy and Fuzzer. Okay, so Napola has pitted from the lead. Sorry, I must have missed that. So that's probably going to bring him out in P10. So now that gives... Oh! Okay, a move there from Carlsberry, which slightly nudged Fuzzer. Maybe that was just a bit of traction. But Miles takes the lead of the Grand Prix, which is going to be good news for Napola, I think. I don't think he'll be too concerned, as he hasn't found himself too far away from the rest of the pack. He's got a 9, well, basically a 10-second gap to James, who's in P11, and he finds himself about 9 seconds behind Josh, who's in very close battle with Chris Logan and Whiskit. So the guys are going to be fighting for position, holding each other up. This is very good. So we're going to take a view on board with Fuzzer, who finds himself at the back of this little pack. We've shown up into P4. Carlsberry's made 10 places up so far, onto the final place of the podium. I'm just going to take a little on board with Fuzzer, just because we can see what's unfolding in front of them. Now, who's going to be pitting next? A lot of the guys looking like they're on super soft tyres here. Yeah, it's a bit of a mixture. So within this little battle, we've got Carlsberry, who's on the soft tyres, who's actually in front of all of these guys, with Pubster Andy on ultras behind, so he's going to have to pit very soon. Shone and Fuzzer on super softs, and John on the ultras behind. So Carlsberry's in a good position at the moment, although let's see how long he can hold out these tyres for. Shone takes a bit of a wobble there. Is that going to allow Fuzzer the opportunity to get through? Fuzzer's had to lift ever so slightly there, as Pubster Andy completely cuts across the lane to go into the pits. He should have definitely have held right then, because that could have caused a problem. So okay, as Shone and Fuzzer, if Fuzzer can take a little bit of a dive, no, he's very patient, which is good to see. Good honest racing from the guys there. Fuzzer's surely going to have a look up the inside now. Is he going to be slightly later on the brakes? Shone doesn't back out. Good move from Fuzzer. Puts himself into P3 as Shone's taking a look back. They are side by side. Fuzzer does have the DRS, but Shone looks like he's got impressive straight line speed. And I think he's just going to sit in behind Fuzzer. Shone's not going to want to battle too much at the moment. So Miles is about a second in front of Carlsberry as we currently stand. So with regards to pit stops, everybody from 9th place downwards has made a stop. A couple of the guys have made 2 stops. Obviously we've got 2 retirements in the way of Pagani and Sheo, but the top 8 have still all to pit, and I think that will very comfortably see Napola take a P1. Yeah, so John comes into the pits. Yeah, Napola's going to retain the lead by quite a nice margin, I think. Finds himself in P7 after the pit stop. So we've got Miles currently in the lead, with Carl gaining by each sector. There's not really too many battles going on. I think we've got Dobby and Pub Surroundy fighting for P10. Yeah, we've got a battle here between John and James for P8. They're side by side. James locking up. Is he going to squeeze him out? Okay, so we've got a little train of 4 cars behind, which is good for Napola, as he finds himself in front of John by about 10.5 seconds. And I think as it currently stands, he finds himself about 13 to 14 seconds off of the leader, although he's just got himself a time penalty, which is not beneficial. Right, we're going to go back on board with Carl and see how he's getting on. Just looking with regards to tyres, so Carl is on 1 harder compound compared to Miles, and finds himself about 8 tenths behind, with a healthy 3-second gap to Fuzzer just behind him. So Carl's just got to be careful with the lag with Miles, because he's caused a few problems to people already. I don't think it'll be too long before we see the rest of the guys making their first stops, because obviously that will jeopardise their races, because their tyre wear is going to get very high very quickly. Going to take an on-board view of Carl now. As Fuzzer dives into the pits to make his stop. Where's that going to put him? So Napola's already passed him. Yeah, Napola's about 14 to 15 seconds away from the leader. Looks like we've got a move going to be happening from Pub Surroundy on Dobby to take P10, and just as I say that, he passes him nicely, so good timing then. I think we've got to see Miles dive into the pits very soon. Saying that, I think he might be coming in this lap. There we go. As Carlsberry takes the lead of the Grand Prix, so from 13th I believe to 1st. Now it's his opportunity to pull away on his soft tyres. He needs to make as much time up as possible before he makes his stop. I think, knowing Carl, he's probably going to try and one-stop this and go on to ultra softs towards the end. So we'll go back into broadcast and see what else is going on. We're going to go down to P10. As we see, who is that? Is that one of the Force Indias just lost control and hit the wall? I believe that's James. Yeah, so he's lost out on 2 positions there. Okay, Napola finds himself up in 4th. So he's got net 1st place at the moment. As we have got James and Henry going side by side. Okay, Fuzzer finds himself half a second behind, so what's happened? So Schoen's gone into the pits from P2, I believe, as Pub gets a 3-second time penalty, so Napola's up into third place now. The only two cars not to pit is Josh and Carl. Let's have a look at... Okay, so Josh is doing well to hold out these super soft tyres. Most of the guys now on the softs. They're going 3 wide. I think that's Schoen that's come out in between them. Is he going to have a look up the inside? He does. There's some contact between Schoen and Pub. And Pub diving across the track. Very aggressive from Pub so far this season. Oh, Schoen's having a bit of a wobble in the background. So Carl has a 12-second lead. Now with a good pit stop, that might bring him out into about P4. And there's a big train forming behind Pub here, from 7th to about 11th place. As we see one of the Saubers running wide, I believe that was that Dobby? Yeah, it was. So that's allowed his teammate to go past him into P9. Yeah, I think Josh has made the wrong call here with regards to his tyres, because he now finds himself only a second clear of Napola, who's pitted already. So Josh is going to lose a lot of time and find himself down towards the bottom of the grid. Let's see how much the time comes down. Yeah, it's about a tenth or two per sector. Let's find out where Schoen is. So Schoen finds himself at 4 tenths away from Pub. It says on the screen that he's on super soft tyres, although he's definitely on softs. So a nice game glitch there. Another one that we found. Surprising grid order so far, considering we've got the likes of Funky, NR, George Alice and Trizzy down towards the bottom. And we've got some of the Division 2 drivers and the reserve drivers up towards the top. I think Schoen's going to be in DRS range of Pub here, so let's see what Pub's defending is like. We know he can be quite rash at times. Oh, bit of a brake check there I think from Pub. Hopefully there's no wing damage. Doesn't look like it, which is good. Okay, so when is Josh going to pit? That is a question. Because he's dropping off by about a second or so per lap to Carl. As he's just lapped the car of Trizzy, I believe. I think Schoen's having another look at Pub. Let's quickly get on board with that. Is Schoen going to go for the dive? He is. Bit of contact. Who is out in the back of him? That's Henry just behind them. And that is Pub going to dive across track again. Okay, so Schoen now has multi-coloured tyres by the looks of things. It keeps changing from red to yellow. As they approach the final corner. Any mistakes? Doesn't look like it. Okay, Josh, he hasn't pitted. I think he just made a mistake. So he's allowed Napola back up into second as Schoen makes the move on Pub. easy as you like, and now he can fly off up the road and try and catch up to John in 6th place. Car was 14.5 seconds clear of Napola. Consistent drive from the Norwegian so far. We've got Miles very close, he's lagging all over the place. As we've already discovered many times with Miles, his internet is probably plugged into an Apple or something of that nature. I won't say too much because I get myself into trouble. Not too much else going on. There's a few guys close together. I think Fuzz is going to be having a look at Napola now, which was inevitable at some point, I think. But who will stop? Okay, we've got some yellows. What has happened? Is that Josh? Doesn't look like it. It might have been Funky. Okay, it says I'm off. Okay, Funky's now retired from the session. He went on to intermediates and then just retired, so interesting one. Not too sure what he's doing, but now down to 16 runners. Well, 15 because Trizzy's not actually here. But we're going to go back to Fuzzo, as I think he's going to look to get past Napola very soon. There was a yellow in sector 1, so what has happened? Well, now sector 2. As Josh finally makes his pit stop, I think we're going to see him drop right down the order. A bit too late for my liking, I think. He's done well to make his tyres last that long. As Fuzzer goes for the squeeze run outside of Napola, puts himself into P2. Now, I believe everyone has pitted other than Carl. Let's have a look. Yeah, so Fuzz has already made a stop, so I'd imagine he's going to have to stop again and go onto the ultra softs. I can't see him making his tyres last that long with 12 laps to go. So if Carl can one stop this, I think it's going to be a win. Made up 12 places from the start, which is really impressive. As Josh McGill goes onto the ultra soft, so he's done well to make his tyres last that long. No assist driver, which is impressive in itself. Is there much else going on? Looks like there's a bit of a gap to everybody else now, so this is probably the closest battle on track. I think it's a good opportunity to take on board with Carl and see how he's getting on. Dobby sets the fastest lap of 108.1. Carl's got a 12-second gap to Fuzzer, which has it's coming down a little bit, so I'd imagine Carl's going to pit within the next lap or two. Because he doesn't want to lose too much time to Fuzzer behind him because he knows he's quick. Now I think strategy is going to come into play now because a lot of the guys are close together. If anybody's managed to make this a one stop, I think they're going to benefit from it massively. As Napola's dropping back, but he's maintaining a good distance to Miles in P4. As we've got Henry making a move on pub by the looks of things. He's going to open at DRS. and Schoen has actually pulled a 4-second gap to Pubstar after his overtake, so he's obviously a quicker driver. Brilliant helicopter view there. This is the closest battle on track at the moment. As NR's retired from the session, what on earth has happened to him? He has binned it. Is that turn 1? Okay, he's binned it and left. We know that he's got that in his locker, unfortunately, NR. He is quick, but he can make mistakes. As Carlsberry has pitted and gone onto ultra softs, he finds himself in P6, and I think I'm doing some quick maths. He's 7 seconds behind the leader, roughly. Okay, about 8 seconds. But he's on 2 softer compounds now, so he's going to be on the charge, and I think some of the guys in front are going to have to pit again. Either that or their tyres are going to be really worn towards the end of the race. We've got Chris Logan having a look at James, so we're going to go and have a look at that. Chris is actually on the harder tyre as well. So we're going to go and have a look at, go back on board with Carl, because he's on the much quicker and fresher tyres, and he's got a few cars to pass ahead of him. So he's got Schoen and John just up in front of him. Good solid drive from Schoen today. He's going to be on DRS now, as Schoen is, but I'm sure Carl's going to have the speed here to make a move. But he's still got 8 or 9 laps to go, so he doesn't need to do anything too rash. Last year's championship winner, as Josh gets a 3-second time penalty. Carl's going to look up the inside. Oh, bit of contact. I think Carl just needs to ease up a little bit. Doesn't need to push too hard. Carl's going to look around the outside, going to the second to last corner. Holds that nicely, bit of a touch. And makes the move on John, who has lost a little bit of time there. So Carl obviously much quicker. I'd expect to see him set the fastest lap very soon. And he's got 3.5 seconds to get on to the podium, which you can see the drivers just in front of him. So from the leader, he's already made up about 2 seconds in a lap. So I would expect to see Carl take this home today. As George Ellis retires from the session, let's go and see what has happened to him. I think he's genuinely just had enough, missing half his front wing, so I have no idea what's gone on. But he's retired, so we're down to just 13 runners. Okay, so we've got Miles on the back of Napola as well. Lagging all over the place. Yeah, and Carl's closed the gap massively already. Yeah, Carl's bought another second off the leader in that lap, so he's looking like the odds-on favourite, but he's only got 6 or 7 laps to complete that task, so he's definitely the fastest guy on track at the moment. Okay, we've got some yellows in sector 2 and 3. Not too sure what's gone on. Okay, we've got Miles right on the back of Napola now, Carl just behind, so Hopefully there's some clean moves done here. It doesn't affect anyone's races because it's been a great drive so far from Napola. There's Josh retires, so we're down to just 12 runners. We're going to take another on board from Carl, I believe, because we're going to see some overtakes very soon, I believe. What's happened to car? Oh, safety car. Well, that has mixed things up. With 5 laps to go, we have a safety car, so I think we might get 1 or 2 laps of racing towards the end, and everyone's going to be queuing up, so we're going to see some very interesting results, I think, towards the end. This is good for Carl because he can preserve these tyres and then push for the last couple of laps. But then, and if any of the guys in front of him pit, he's going to jump position. As John gets a drive through for speeding under the safety car. As Napola has pitted from 2nd place, so he's going to lose so many positions. His tyres might be wearing out, but he could have just put that in lean and just let the car drive itself for a couple of laps. As Pubs only gets a drive through for speeding under the safety car. Okay, so this is only going to benefit the guys that don't pit, I believe. I don't think we'll see Fuzzer or Carl jump in. Shones moves up to P4. James is now up to 6th place. Now, if I was these guys on track, I wouldn't have pitted if I was inside the top 4 and 5. So once the guys come out the pits, we will do a quick rundown of the standings going into the, we're going to lap 32 out of 36 of this Grand Prix. Okay, so everyone's at the pits. We'll chuck it onto broadcast. So we've got Fuzzer in P1 with Miles in P2. Good drive from Miles, but unfortunately having quite a lot of issues this evening. We've got Carsberry in P3, who's on the ultra soft tyres, fairly fresh ones as well. We've got Sharon in P4, another good drive from him, who's moved up 6 places from qualifying in 10th. We've got Whiskey in 5th and James in 6th. Napola's dropped down into P7th after that, so not too sure why Napola pitted. His tyres must have been on the limit. Again, he could have just popped that down in lean for a couple of laps and he just pushed him for the final 2. I'm sure he would have been okay. John's down in 8th, Pub's in 9th, but he's obviously got that drive-through penalty to serve as well, so I think that's going to put him right towards the back. And Henry is in the last points place in 10th, and then we've got Dobby and Chris in 11th and 12th, and Trizzy's car is on track, but he's 3 laps behind, and I don't think he's been in the session for about half an hour, so I'm not too sure he's being counted. So I think the safety car will be in for, for 1 more lap, and then we'll have the final 2 under green flags, and we can see who's going to take the win. Hopefully there's no stupid driving under the safety car. Because if anyone gets any wing damage in this position right now, that's their race as good as done. So the safety car is ghosting, so I think it might be coming in this lap, so we're going to get 3 laps. As Fuzzer is slowing down the pack. Now when will he kick on? Yep, safety car's coming in. As Fuzzer's warming up his tyres before he makes that big push. And as soon as that goes green, DRS has been enabled and the race is back underway. Carl's going to be looking to push. Fuzzer's had a good restart. any silly moves into turn one. We got a, I think that was a Ferrari going up the inside, a bit further down the field. This is literally as good as a race, as a start of a race. Is that Carl having a look? Yep, Carl squeezed out Miles, but he's lost positions to Schoen now. So Schoen finds himself in second with Carl's teammate just behind. Oh dear. Lag from Miles there. Has cost Carl another position, so Carl's dropped down into P5. As Miles has spun, and there's been a massive bit of contact. And I think, was that Napolo, or was that, who was that he hit? Miles has left the session. I knew that his lag was going to come into play somewhere. And unfortunately it's at the cost of one of the other drivers. I think we've seen an incident towards the back of the field as well. Henry gets a time penalty. Now, Schoen finds himself in P2. Carl gets a 3-second time penalty, so he's had a horrendous ending to the race at expense of Schoen and his teammate Wisket. As Carl's made a move, I believe, into P3, and Schoen is on, what tyres is Schoen on? Is he on softs as well? Here he is. He finds himself less than a second away from a race win, I believe, with a lap and a half to go. As Pub Serrani's got himself up into third. So Carl's got back past his teammate, and now he's lost a position out to Pub. Although, did Pub Serrani take his drive-through penalty? I don't think he did. I think he's going to have to do it now. Yeah, Pub comes in. So that puts Carl up onto the podium. But we know Carl has a penalty. So we've got a lot of moves being made. Napola's in P7. Henry's up into 6th. Chris is up into 8th place. So out of all of this, we've only actually got 10 runners now. So we've lost 9 throughout the course of this race, which is not good. No one's really that close to one another now, in sense of actual moves being made. I don't think the closest we've got is probably Chris Logan. As you can have a look, he's a bit too far back on the last lap of the race, so I think Fuzzer might take this, but for any mistakes his 8 temps clear are shown. So I think we're going to see Fuzzer take the win. Not too sure on penalties. I think Schoen might have one as well, actually. I could be wrong. But as it currently stands, Fuzzer takes the win. We're going to jump down the field so we don't lag out of position. Carl takes third. And we've got, is that Henry? He's hit the wall in the background. Yeah, so Henry's lost it on the final corner from 6th place. Chris Logan moves into 5th and Napola into 6th. So Chris has had a great restart there. And finishes in P5. Napola down in 6th. And Wisket comes home in 4th, so I believe that's Carl stays in P3 after his time penalties. So we'll just have a look at the final classifications. So Schoen takes the win. Fuzzer must have had a time penalty, so that's a brilliant drive from Schoen. First win of the season for him, he's going to be chuffed for that. Yeah, so it was all down to a time penalty. So Schoen takes the win. Second is Fuzzer, and Carsberry rounds off the podium in P3. Wisket in 4th, Chris Logan in 5th, Napola in 6th. Had a great opportunity for a podium there, but he pitted towards the end under the safety car. James in 7th, John in 8th, and then Pub in 9th, and then Henry unfortunately losing it on the final corner of the race in P10. We had retirements from Miles, Dobby, Trizzy was there but wasn't. Then we had Josh, George Ellis, NR, Funky, Pagani and Shay. All too familiar down the bottom with DNFs, unfortunately. Driver of the day for me has to be Schoen. Fuzzer obviously in contention as well as Carl. The top 5 actually all started outside the top 10. excluding Shone, so they all had a case, but for Shone to qualify in 10th place and then go on to take the win, take some beating. So well done to you, Shone. But that wraps up P9 of the Division 1 TUF Racing League. Next race is in Britain, and that will be on Tuesday evening, so make sure you all tune in for that. Thank you very much, and see you later.